Hi and welcome to the Mailbox. This is a weekly bit where I go through comments that people left on various platforms, whether it be Twitter, Patreon, Curious Cat lately as well, YouTube, wherever it may be, mostly from YouTube to be honest, where I want to give a fuller answer, or maybe it's not a question, might be a statement that I want to sort of extend the discussion on as well. Usually keep these to around about 10. So, first one is from Curious Cat. So for those who don't know, by the way, this is just like a social media thing. I don't know how old it is. I've not really seen it before a few weeks ago, where people can ask you questions and then you as long as you remember to check it every now and then, you can put responses in as well. So there's one from there from the last week, and this one it says, about character movement, do you use the mouse or keyboard to move? I use both. I use the keyboard for moving forward, backwards and strafing left and right, and I use my mouse for steering. I also have, because I have 4 thumb buttons, I don't have a nag with loads of them, that would do my head in. In fact, I'd fat finger so many things, or fat thumb, whatever you call it. 4 is the perfect number for me. I use one of those for a shift modifier, one for control, one for out, but then I have another one that is my auto run bind, so I can also auto run with the click of my thumb as well. Not how I used to do it. In fact, the way I used to move was really weird, because in the first couple of expansions where I was very much a clicker, I used to do the normal stuff of keyboard turning and all the rest of it. But as DPS, it was really weird because I had different ways of using the keyboard and mouse depending on whether I was healing or DPS. So when I was DPS, then I was very much a keyboard turner, and the mouse was just used to like click my buttons. Now for healing, this was not even possible. You couldn't be using your mouse to click buttons because you needed them to click player frames for the person you wanted to heal next. So I was forced to basically use a keyboard as we would now with binds for my different heals, and that also meant movement as well, so steering with the mouse and not using the turn at all either. So it was actually really weird. I keyboard turned and you know, it was a clicker for one mode and then not for the other. A little bit of a historical oddity there. Next one for the YouTube comments. First one, does he say Restoration Paladin at the start? Well, let's listen. Hi, so welcome to the Retribution Paladin 7.3 companion. I think that's Retribution Paladin. This might be one of those things where an accent, one accent, I mean, none of us think we have an accent. We've all got accents, of course. And some accents, I suppose, for other people are clearer and more difficult for others. But I would have been surprised because not only have I played a Retribution Paladin for a long, long time, there isn't actually such thing as a Restoration Paladin, so I'm unlikely to get them confused. Oh, hello. Ice cream. Seems to have finished. Next one. How do you feel about Heroes of the Storm releasing a Dreadlord Jaina skin? I know they don't stick to lore or anything, but they did announce that skin at Gamescom. It makes me think Jaina will be going evil. I think the opposite. I don't think this is going to... In fact, any thoughts I had of maybe she's going to be corrupted were completely dispelled by that. Again, it's one of those things too on the nail. For a start, if you look at the BlizzCon art, which Blizzard tweeted a picture of Jaina for BlizzCon a little while ago, and clearly not corrupted, by the way. But they've now released the full BlizzCon artwork, and it has 2 Jainas on it. The corrupted Heroes of the Storm one, and the good one, or we assume to be good, for World of Warcraft. I think Blizzard, you know what Blizzard like? They've got a good sense of humour. They like playing about with the community. This meme has gone on for so long that someone at Blizzard has just gone on Heroes of the Storm. Do you know what? Let's just do it. Let's just do Dreadlord Jaina. And because Heroes of the Storm is not canon for the purposes of World of Warcraft, they can do what they want, and they've just thought, you know, it's a good idea. So it's got no bearing whatsoever on World of Warcraft. There's no little subtle little sneaky hint here. And in actual fact, if anything, it demonstrates to me that she's not going to be corrupted at all. Next one. If the next expansion isn't about the Void in some way, I quit. It is absolutely certain to be that. So certain. They've been building it up a little bit. There's been several nods to the old gods throughout Legion. And also the fact that it has to be about that because that's the only existential threat left now. Once Legion is concluded, all that is left is the old gods. That's it. Obviously, we can have little battles like, you know, Missa Pandaria type stuff, Horde and Alliance, getting to grips together, because we all, Horde and Alliance, always come back to fighting each other once there isn't a common threat again, and there could always be expansions based around that. But the next expansion is clearly going to be Old Gods related. Doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be old gods as far as the eyes can see. There'll be other ones in there as well. It's never all about one thing, is it? Legion wasn't just about Legion, was it? The first raid was all about, in actual fact, old gods. Xavius, the Emerald Nightmare, that's all old godsy stuff. Nothing to do with the Legion. Trial of Valor, similar sort of thing. I mean, there was a little bit of a link with the Legion there, because Helya was aligning herself with the Legion. But ultimately, the raid itself wasn't very Legion-y, was it? It was very much just hell. If the Legion was not even involved, we may still have been doing that one. So, you know, the main theme of an expansion is not the be-all and end-all of everything to do with that expansion, usually. Next one. That was the worst pirate accent I've ever heard. You sounded Irish. Do you know what? That comment is really weird. I'm not defending my pirate accent, by the way. But the comment itself, I'm not sure what this person thinks pirates are, by the way. As if they're a people that belong to a nation, like Pirate Land or something. Being a pirate is a profession. It's like being a doctor. So that statement is a bit like saying, that was the worst doctor accent I've ever heard. It sounded Irish. It's like as if there were no Irish doctors. Now, I don't know whether, you know, you maybe associate Blackbeard the Pirate, Edward Teach, who was from Bristol. So maybe I should have done a West Country accent. But, but there were plenty of pirates from the Emerald Isle, to be sure. So yes, pirates are all over the place. Pirates exist now. Pirates existed then, and there were as Britain for many hundreds of years was a dominant marine nation. There were plenty of pirates from the British Isles and all over the British Isles as well. Next one. I read on US. Oh yeah, this is a good one. This was to do with the Netherlight Crucible, so all the RNG to the Netherlight Crucible, and Blizzard sort of defending it, how it's fun. Someone said on here, this is just hilarious. I read on US forums that Blizz should enact this same system for their paychecks. I'm not. Yes, I think you're right there. I'm not sure they'll consider RNG to be such fun if that were the case. It does remind me of a sort of a system. It's not quite RNG based at Steam, though. I don't know whether this still goes on there. But I was told a few years ago, it was Steam, the game studio, where everyone's sort of free. I'm pretty sure it's Steam. Some games developer. And everyone's sort of free to just come up with their own stuff. So the idea is, like, a developer comes up with an idea. So then they think, right, who do I need to make this idea into a game? And they grab people, and they have their desks are on like casters. So the idea is they get people who might be interested. If they're not interested, then it's a rubbish idea. If you get people that are interested that they need, then they form a group and they all wheel their tables together and start working on it, stuff like that. Then at the end of the year, they each vote each other effectively their salaries. You know, so everyone sort of says who they think should deserve the most, and so on. It works down that. And of course, you can't imagine that working in too many professions, because self-interest would come into it. I think the idea that the way it works there is because everyone knows they're going to be well paid for their endeavours, that in actual fact greed doesn't come into it as much. But it just sort of put me into mind of that, of not actually knowing what your salary is going to be at the end of the year. Next one, this was about the Mythic Plus score video. So it says, and I was sort of saying there's not a lot Blizzard could do about this after all its third-party stuff using it. It says, Blizzard most certainly can control Mythic Plus score. They need to block these sites like Raid.io and WoW Progress from pulling this form of data and making it public when they access it. The thing about that is, yes, they could, and they could do other things as well. They could prevent us being able to have damage meters or pull logs to be able to have like Warcraft logs and stuff like that. And Blizzard developers are well known for not liking the fact that we can learn so much about the mechanics of the game. They think it takes away some of the mystique about it. And the thing is, though, Blizzard, right from the start, well, certainly from the start of World of Warcraft, have been very, very pro-community. You know, not all MMOs, for example, have embraced add-ons, third-party add-ons in the way that Blizz have. Obviously, with certain ones, they've drawn the line. If they feel it's making the game too easy, or even playing the game for you, that's not on, they're not having that. But generally speaking, they're pretty supportive of third-party creators of add-ons and other features that use the game thing. So it's one of those things, like the phrase Blizzard used for something completely different recently, is they want to make sure that the cure isn't worse than the disease. Blizzard, to do this, that is basically them blocking the community from something like this. I don't think, well, I know they don't want to do this. Bloody ice. I don't want any ice cream. Go away. I mean, it is hot, but, you know, I don't need to be constantly harangued. So yeah, so I don't think that's a realistic thing. I don't think it's something, even though, of course, they can do it, I don't think they would want to do it. Even if they saw this as a big problem for themselves, I think their view would just be, well, this is a community-created thing. The communities need to take ownership of it. But yeah, they're not going to do anything themselves about it, because that would be, from their point of view, worse than the disease. Next one. This is about guilds collapsing. So I'd say realm size contributes to the majority of guilds collapsing. Hard to get into a good guild on your realm if the majority of guilds are casual, since most would like to recruit players with equivalent experience. A new player will likely not know to research a decent realm to join. It's maybe not even that. I think you are right in terms of the realm size being a key factor. And it's not necessarily about people not knowing how to research realms, stuff like that. That is certainly going to be true. But when I look through WoW Progress and things like that, there's a very high proportion of players who click on the flag not willing to transfer, which indicates that the vast majority of people who do want to look for gold, and we're not just talking about people who are like heroic. You can understand heroic raiders not wanting to change realms, because why should they? There should be loads of heroic guilds on a realm. But even the ones who want to push progress are not willing to do that, whether because of cost or for some other reason. To be honest, some people do have reasons other than cost, although I never really understand it. But there are so many people you just see on WoW Progress. Like, the majority of the ones I'll click on will not be available to me, because they'll just say we're not willing to transfer. So I think, you know, the size of the realm definitely has something to do with it. Interestingly, at BlizzCon, Ian Hazakostas was asked about, I don't know why they would ask them, because I don't think it's really a games developer's realm of influence. But I suppose as World of Warcraft game director, I suppose it's difficult for me to think of him now, because I keep thinking of him as a developer, but now he's the actual director, isn't he? So yeah, I suppose he does oversee all things World of Warcraft. And they were asked about, are they going to be able to connecting any more realms? And he did sort of indicate that that was coming up, that there would be more realms being connected. But, you know, as you would know, and some people will know, they often aren't very quick to do things like this. I suppose there's other pressures as well, such as the fact that they get a lot of that from realm transfers, from the people who are prepared to realm transfer. So they're not necessarily always helping themselves if they make it less of an imperative for people who want to move in the first place. Next one, it says they'll announce the X-Pack on BlizzCon in September. Gamescom will be about 7.3 in Argus content. Well, we know that's the case now, disappointingly. Unfortunately, they're not going to be... Well, they may well announce the expansion at BlizzCon. I'd certainly expect them to now. It's not going to be in September, I'm afraid, because BlizzCon is at the end of October. So you've got another month or two longer than you thought to wait still. This one is about a video, quite an old video I did on Simcraft, actually. It says, is this only for max level? I don't know why anyone would want to sim themselves for leveling content, certainly. So yes, you would certainly not sim a character unless you were at max level. Like, why would you bother? Just go out and kill boars to level, or do what you want. You certainly don't need to consider gear. Like, why? So yeah. But the other thing is, you know, this is the downside of YouTube. So, I mean, as I say, the video that this was a response to was quite an old video. Unfortunately, is the case, it doesn't matter how much I try, and I don't always do this well, but I did in this particular case, like put cards in there that link to the playlist with the most up-to-date videos. So if people click that, it's like, you know, that'll have the most up-to-date ones. Unfortunately, this is the downside of putting stuff on YouTube. Unlike on a website where you can just get rid of the old and put the new on, Sometimes people do happen across old ones, but yeah. In terms of simming characters, only at level cap. And the last one, more of a sort of controversial one, I suppose. Legendaries are now like epics were in vanilla, and epics are like greens. So basically, it's all gone to years and years ago. I would say it's worse than that, actually. I think legendaries are worse than it was for epics in vanilla, because now when you get to level cap, you want your legendary. If you ding a character like today, let's say at the start of a weekend, and you spend that weekend, you do your LFR, maybe you get a group together and you do all the mythic plus zeros, maybe you do a few mythic pluses as well, you get a bit of gear, maybe you just do your daily heroic dungeon, you do your emissary cash, blah, 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 blah. Maybe you've got some gold, maybe you get you some crafted gear, and after you've done all those dungeons, you've got Bloods of Sargeras to put them up as well, stuff like that. So you're doing content, so your emissary caches, you're doing stuff on the Broken Shore, you're maybe farming nether shards and spending those on gear, you're doing your LFR raids, maybe even sneaking into a normal, mythic dungeons, all of this stuff. After the end of that weekend, if you haven't got your first legendary, a lot of people are very disappointed. Whereas in vanilla, you didn't expect to get an epic as soon as you ding 60. When did I get my first epic? Oh dear. I remember what it was. It was the Stronghold Gauntlets, which were crafted epic, actually. And then just after it, I got a World BOE drop, Destiny Sword. But my first few epics were BOE, effectively. 2 of them crafted, 1 of them a World drop. But it was some time before I even got into raiding and was able to get raid epics as well. So I would say, yeah, legendaries, you're expecting to get legendaries even quicker now than then. But epics being like greens, I wouldn't say epics are like greens as such. It's difficult to say what they are like. I might, because you would have a full set of greens as you cap. You're not going to have a full set of epics as you level cap. You'd soon get them, but you don't have them immediately. At the same time, I wouldn't necessarily say epics are like blues either, because it also took some time to get yourself a full set of blues. Even if you were in a guild and did dungeons on a regular basis, it took so long to do a dungeon, even with a willing group. So I'm not sure where I would place them. I would place them at somewhere between green and blue. It's definitely not like greens. But maybe even blues were rarer than epics are now. Because, you know, I mean, some people have been watching me stream on Saturdays now that I did a rogue a few weeks ago. And within a week, I had all epics. All epic gear. And not... I mean, I know I'm in a raiding guild and easily could have done a load of mythic plus zeros and stuff like that with people. I didn't do anything like that. I just did LFR. And dragged it through the guild heroic, and that was about it. So anyway, that's the comments for this week. Keep them coming. I'll keep doing this each week, just going through roundabout, as I say, 10 from different platforms that seem interesting. Thanks for watching, and until next time, I'll see you later.